to kind of start and be involved in another one. But, I just passionately said that ISIS is an existential threat, not just to the region, but also to America. That would pan out too with the radicalization of different kind of sleeper cells and individuals in the United States. So the book is about that, and how then we got some more folks, we got some more special ops folks, and how we kind of kludged this together to support the Iraqis who were now scared to death because they lost in Mosul 5 different divisions were defeated, destroyed. And so the Iraqis didn't think that they could start for at least another year. And they had the Americans thinking the same thing. I was on the ground and said, nope, we got to start now. I guess chomping at the bit from June to August of 2014 on getting after ISIS. We weren't allowed to do airstrikes, but we certainly had the intel. We had the Predator drones, everything. We watched ISIS closely. Everything ISIS was doing, how their leaders. So when ISIS made a strategic error in August of 2014, which is they went after the Kurds, who, by the way, I wanted them to fight back in June, but they said, no, we're okay because ISIS, we have an understanding. But yeah, that understanding didn't work too well. So ISIS attacked them. And so President Obama gave us limited permission to do airstrikes. So that was the start of it. And so the book is about that and how we then pushed the Iraqis on the ground to fight. And every time they did, with our airstrikes and support and intel and everything else we did, they won each of these fights. Of course, you got to think differently. After a couple successes, the Iraqis then said, this is good. We got to wait to see what ISIS does next. It's like, what? No, ISIS is going to be now waiting to see what we're going to do next because we're going to go on the offensive. And so the book is about that. You'll see those interactions I've had with Americans, with Iraqis, and how we put together this strike cell. And the whole concept of the strike cell, about 30 people in there, 8 different huge flat screens. We could see all of Iraq in some cases on different battlefields. And that's where Wes Bryant came in. He was a special ops JTAC. He's special ops Air Force, but the JTACs, you had him, you had Green Berets from the Army, you had Navy SEALs. They were like wolves. No, I'm sorry. They were lone wolves, used to be, because they're used to being on the ground with a unit. But now we put them all in the same area. They were snarling at each other. But it all worked. And we were able to stop this offensive juggernaut that people just thought could not be stopped. When I hit the ground and went to talk to the ambassador, the military attaché there, a defense attaché, was just beside himself. He said, ISIS, they're coming down the Tigris River Valley, the Euphrates River Valley. Baghdad is next. They're following the strategic plan. We've got to evacuate. I wanted to go like a cartoon and just take one and slap him. Shut up, Colonel. We got this. But the embassy, a third of the people had already been evacuated when I arrived. So it was a tough time at that point, and the ambassador at the time was very glad to see us. But that's what the book's about, and how, again, we stopped this ISIS offensive juggernaut. It would take 3 years to eventually defeat ISIS, but their offensive capability, for the most part, was taken care of in the first 8 months, where they weren't able to really do much attacking. And then their leadership, because of that 6-week time where we were able to observe them, their leaders were absolutely brave. I'll give them that. They had some brave leadership and courageous leadership, even though I couldn't stand their brutality and how they, killed people, murdered, but they were brave. Even their senior leaders would come down. So what the Iraqis thought were these little engagements that we were supporting them on, what we turned those in is to strategic leader ambushes. So leaders would show up, and we would, through JSOC, special ops, and all sorts of neat kind of systems we have, we were able to do that. And so within the first 8 months, 40 out of their 50 top leaders were killed.
Wow.
So again, books, it's a fascinating book told from two different perspectives. Mine is the commanding general on the ground, and Wes Bryant as a non-commissioned officer, NTIC of the strike cell, from his perspective. And they are different. It weaves through the story. Like, we don't meet until page 162. And before that, he didn't even like me. He just said, that general, I don't even like officers. So it's a fascinating book.
It is. And so we can find that on Amazon?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, sir, I am so honored that you were on here today, and for just sharing your perspective on everything and what you did for everybody and for Fort Bliss. So I absolutely appreciate you as a person and as a leader. So thank you for everything you did.
Well, thank you, Annette. Thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for what you're doing now. It's kind of cool. You're married to a service member, so you're still in it in many ways. So God bless you and your family.
Thank you so much, sir. I can't wait to see what you're going to do in the next 5 years, or maybe another book.
Yeah, I did a book signing event and party in Dallas. Again, the different people that come into your lives. A person I grew up with in El Paso. In fact, we went to West Point together. Paul Divis he's becoming a Dallas socialite himself. He said, "Hey." And he's got a Southern accent now, a Texas drawl, which we didn't have in El Paso, but he said, "Hey, we're going to just try to get together." And there's a kind of guy who's a billionaire lawyer. He's Mark Cuban's lawyer, and that's one of his clients. He wants to have a book signing party for you at his mansion. I said, "Really?" So we did. We had 300 people there.
That's amazing.
I brought 175 books. All of them were sold. We probably should have brought more. In fact, this guy's so big, he had Barnes and Noble come to his house and sell the books. So, and during that book signing party, I invited all sorts of friends and family, but one family invited. Again, I'm from El Paso. When we first moved into El Paso, when my dad retired there, we'd been there 2 other times, but for the final time, this is 1970. We built a house in the Eastwood area, East El Paso, which was East El Paso back then. That's like Central El Paso now, but it was at the edge of the desert. So, our street, the rest of the street was just desert. It was the edge. Well, there's a family that moved across the street. We're black, family was white. They were Irish Catholic. Well, we didn't know them, but one day, maybe in a week of them moving in, the mother and her oldest son came over and, rang the doorbell. And I said, "Is your mother here?" I said, "Oh, sure, come in." I was just a little kid. I was 9 years old. I brought my mother, and she looked at the lady and said, "Thank you," because she saw the lady had a book in her hand. I said, "You found my yearbook. I've been looking for it since we moved in."
Oh,
and the lady looked at her, and she said, "Jackie, it's Marilyn. Marilyn Reno." Now, their last name was McGinnis, but her maiden name was Reno. And my mother looked at her, and they started hugging. And I didn't know what was going on. I started crying. The two of them, and even when I tell this, I get even teary-eyed a little bit, had graduated from high school together at this special school for girls, talented young ladies. It was this experiment in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In 1944, they went to school from 1940 to 1944. And graduated together from Girls High in Philadelphia. And my mother was one of the few black students there. And so now roll the tape forward 26 years later, we're neighbors in El Paso across the street. They were the only two members of their high school class who ended up marrying service members. My mom married an Army guy. She married an Air Force guy. Our families are intertwined, and to this day are the best of friends. Well, both my parents have passed away now, but those two were there. They came to that mansion with all of their kids and their kids' spouses, their 3 sons, their daughter, and their spouses. And I had to recognize them. So in my remarks welcoming everybody, after the billionaire introduced me, I mentioned them. And then it was off a staircase, this huge, again, I've never seen quite a house like this. I went down, and they were 93 and 95 years old. And I hugged them. There were tears. And so we're going to write a book called A Tale of Two Families. White family, black family, and race relations in America from the 1940s to the 1970s and 80s. And if we could figure this out as families, maybe there's a solution for our country. So that's a future book. I got about 5 books in my head. That's one of them.
I love that one, sir. That's amazing. What a beautiful story. Yeah, absolutely. Well, keep me updated, keep us updated so that we can be on the lookout. And again, sir, thank you so much. This has been
Thank you.
great.
Thank you for your interest.
Of course. Of course. Oh my gosh. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. You're a busy man, but I really appreciate your time on here. And thank you again.
Thank you, Annette. And good luck to you. God bless you.
Thank you so much.